Live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Ubuntu Community Team Q&A. Probably the last one of the year since we're gearing up for holiday breaks coming up. Today you've got me, Michael Hall.
We could say it's not the last one of the year and then drop our f***ers in it and have them do one next week.
We could do that, yes. That's one of those coworkers is our manager. We probably shouldn't. Like I said, my name is Michael Hall. I work on the community team here at Canonical, and with me is Alan Pope, who works on the same team.
Hello.
So if this is your first time watching, I hope you're watching on ubuntuonair.com because you'll have our nice little video here, and right below it you'll have an embedded IRC chat window where you can join the chat, talk to other people who are watching, and ask us any questions that you might have. The way that works is you start your question with the word question in all capital letters, and that way it turns a nice bright yellow for me and I don't miss it. We will try and get through as many of them as we can in the order that they come in. Keep in mind that there is about a minute delay between when we record the video and when you see the video, so don't wait until the last minute to get questions in. You can ask questions at any time. Like I said, we'll come back to them after we go through a round of updates. I know there's already quite a few coming in, and that's fine. Go ahead and keep them coming. In the meantime, we'll get to some announcements. I mentioned earlier that we've got a holiday break coming up. Canonical essentially shuts down for a little while between Christmas and New Year's, so there's not going to be a lot of people online starting next week. There may or may not be another Q&A next week, depending on who's around to do it. But for everybody else, expect us back probably the first full week of January. All right, one big announcement that I want to bring up, I know we've been pushing it a lot, is the Ubucon that's coming up in January. That's January 21st and 22nd in Pasadena, California. Ubucons are a grassroots community-led effort to provide regional conferences focusing specifically on Ubuntu. And for this one, we've got a lot more going on. Canonical's going to have a much bigger presence in this one than we have in past Ubucons, including having Mark Shuttleworth there giving a keynote and participating in a panel. We're going to have a lot of Canonical people there and a lot of community people there. So it's a good thing to attend if you're in the area, or you can travel down to Southern California. It's being co-hosted with the Southern California Linux Expo, which is a huge show, probably the biggest show in North America for open source software. So that's the 4 days from the 21st through the 23rd, I think. So if you come to Ubucon, be sure to stay for that. We have a registration page up on ubucon.org. I just posted the link in the IRC. If you plan on coming, please register there. That lets us know how many people are going to be there. We're trying to arrange some different events, social event, after party, that kind of thing. And knowing how many people are going to be there is going to be a big help in the planning for that. All right, Alan, did you want to talk about Google Codin? You're muted.
Sorry, I just managed to close the IRC channel I was in, closing the wrong window there. Yes, so I will also be at the Ubucon, so I look forward to seeing everyone there. Something that I also wanted to mention that kicked off a few days ago, a week or so ago, is Google Codin. If you go to codin.withgoogle.com, you can find out more about Google Codin. It's a contest introducing 13 to 17-year-olds, like pre-university stage students, to open source development. And we're one of the organizations involved in Codin. And so we have a bunch of tasks that we've set out that during this month or so, people can get stuck in and start contributing to open source projects. There's a lot of other organizations involved as well. We're just one of them. And we've got 100+ tasks in the queue for people to pick up and contribute to. And we've got a whole bunch of people who've already contributed. There are some prizes provided by Google themselves for certain levels of contribution that have been attained by the students. And we have a whole bunch of mentors in the Ubuntu community, a few from Canonical, a few from outside Canonical, who can help people get started. We've got an IRC channel, which is #Ubuntu-Google on Freenode. Drop by there if you're interested in getting involved. There's a whole bunch of us lurking in that channel. And you can have a look at the tasks that are available at codin.withgoogle.com. Also, if you're a member of the Ubuntu community and there are tasks that you think would be good for someone to contribute to, bear in mind these need to be, something that's doable by someone between the ages of 13 to 17, generally sat at their computer, contributing in some way. It doesn't necessarily have to be code. There's a whole load of categories for different types of contribution. Code is just one of them. There are other things like writing documentation. You can do bug triaging, making videos. There's all kinds of different ways to contribute. Drop by the IRC channel and ask questions, or just have a look at some of the tasks on the website if you qualify. If you're interested in becoming a mentor and helping mentor those new students, then we welcome experienced mentors from the Ubuntu community as well. I think that's everything I wanted to say about that. It runs from December the 7th, so from last week until January the 25th next year. Whoa, sounds weird saying next year.
Yeah, I know.
That's what happens when it gets towards the end of the year.
And then once we get into January, we're going to have several weeks where we're still putting 2015 on the end of every date.
Or, at the beginning of every date, for those who use a decent date format.
for those who have a sane way of formatting date strings, yes.
Never miss an opportunity to have a stab about the American date format, is my motto.
Cool. There's plenty of formats and measurements you can have a stab at there.
Groovy. Should we get on with the questions or anything else you wanted to cover?
I've got another announcement. Last week, Will Cook from the desktop team announced that we are disabling the online scopes in Unity 7, starting in the 1604 release. So when you go to your dash home, you are no longer going to have all of the online scopes being searched. It'll just be your local scopes. So that's taking effect now. I think the changes just landed. So if you're running the development release of Ubuntu, you'll already have that take effect. If you have already disabled it or made any other changes, when you upgrade to 1604, those changes will be preserved. We're not going to go back and change anything. But if you've left it as default, leaving the online scopes on, then when you upgrade to 1604, they will default to off. So you'll lose those, but you can opt back into those. Go to the privacy settings, go to the search tab, and you can re-enable online scopes that way. All right, Alan, did you want to talk about the Pebble one? You mentioned that to me earlier.
Oh yeah, it was just a brief mention because I saw Wayne Ward on Google Plus had mentioned it. Maybe you can find the post while I'm babbling. So Michael Zanetti recently expressed interest. He's one of the Unity 8 developers working at Canonical. Expressed interest in getting Pebble Watch working for Ubuntu phone users. So Pebble Watch is this kind of thing that's one of these new smartwatch things that talks via Bluetooth to your mobile device, and by default it talks to iOS and Android devices. But Michael wanted to enable support in Ubuntu phone so you could get notifications on your watch and see your calendar on your watch and all the other kind of groovy interactions that you can have on a smartwatch without getting your phone out of your pocket. So he started working on that a little while ago, and he had a small team of beta testers testing it out and making sure it works, and he's continued to work on that. And Wayne has posted on Google Plus a little bit about his experience with it. So if you're interested, then I'd recommend getting in touch with M. Zanetti on IRC, who can give you all the details. I think it's not ready for prime time yet. There's some things in the platform that are needed which won't come until a later over-the-air update. I think you have to wait for at least OTA 9 which is mid-January next year. But it's come a long way in a very short period of time. Zanetti is quite the machine when it comes to development. I don't know where he finds the time, but I'm glad he does find the time. So yeah, there's Pebble support coming very soon, which is good. It's also quite nice that there's a little Telegram group. So if you're on Telegram, you can probably find their Telegram group. And one of the people in the Telegram group is someone who actually works for Pebble. So it's quite nice that we're getting some information from them. It's not all reverse engineering and hidden stuff. They're actually providing useful information to Michael for him to continue developing. So that's good.
Yeah, that's always nice when the other company is happy to be involved and help us out.
Yeah, and it's not official or anything. It's a community maintained piece of software. But yeah, good work.
All right, so let's get to the questions. Again, you can ask questions anytime. Start them with the word question in all caps for us. We actually had some come in before we started the broadcast, so I'm going to go all the way back to Sponge, who says, I was speaking to an experienced Ubuntu user, and he said, why on God's earth did Unity decide to make it so that you could move the close and minimize buttons in a program from the top left to the top right? In Chromium, it's fine, but in Unity, it's all mucked up in the design ethos. You can't even change it in Ubuntu Tweak. So the primary reason for that is because in Unity, when you maximize a window, it integrates with that top bar. And already on the top bar on the right-hand side, you have all of your indicators. So if we were to try and cram the close and minimize buttons in there too, every time you maximize or not, it's going to move all that stuff around. So it was just cleaner to keep it on the left-hand side where there wasn't currently anything that would conflict with the positioning of those buttons. Yeah, and in fact, if you have Chromium and you set it to, stick the window controls on the right, drawing it itself, and then you maximize it, you're still going to get them on the left again once it integrates with the title bar. So it's a little bit weird.
I think it's one of those things that people are passionately feel one way or the other. I'm one of those people who kind of accepts the defaults that most desktops give me, and it seems to work for me. I find actually a bit weird when I go back to a Windows machine and the buttons are on the other side. It's but we've been talking about this for years and years and years, and
yeah, it doesn't take very long to get used to them being on the other side either.
Right.
All right.
You're going to have some questions because I lost them when my IRC disconnected earlier when I lost the channel. So sorry.
All right. I'll ask them all and just give the ones I don't want to answer to you. UN Cool Jazz asks, 2 times my morning alarm for wake up didn't work on a Nexus 4 RC proposed. Is it a common bug? Anyone else experienced this problem? So Alan, you work a lot with the core app developers, including the Clock app, which is responsible for setting these. Have you heard of this bug recently?
Well, the Clock app is responsible for setting them, but it's not the thing that triggers the alarm. The thing that triggers the alarm is the date time indicator at the top of the screen. It can be a bug that the clock isn't saving them correctly or isn't saving them in the right time zone or in the right, in some way it's not right. But invariably it's indicator date time that's the problem. I'm not aware. I have the alarm blaring out on my phone regularly to the annoyance of my family. So it works here. I have a RC proposed device as well. Not a Nexus 4. Mine happens to be a BQ, but I think the software stack is the same on both. So it should work. If it doesn't, then that's a bug. And we should fill in a bug report with whatever detail you can about under what circumstances it fails, try and reproduce it. We can get someone to have a look at that. But indicator date time, indicator-date time is the name of the package that you want to file it against.
All right, the next one looks to be for you too. It's from Core Apps Police. He says, is there any plans to remove or fix the Evernote integration in the Notes app?
Remove, no. Fix, well, What's broken? Is my question. Again, if there's a problem, then we need to identify what the problem is and fix it. But the Evernote integration is there so that you can synchronize your notes with Evernote in the cloud. Obviously, that's optional by default. If you start the Notes app and say no, I don't want to sync my notes to the cloud, then all your notes stay on your local device, and they don't synchronize anywhere. I personally use Evernote, and I quite like having mine synced to the cloud. So if it doesn't work, if there's any bugs there, then please file a bug. The project on Launchpad is reminders-app. So feel free to file a bug on there, and we'll take a look at it.
All right. Sponge is asking, can some people tell us what is happening with Ubuntu TV as described here? And he posts a link to Reddit that says that Ubuntu TV is being absorbed into Ubuntu Personal. So Ubuntu TV kind of got put on the back burner when we started working on phones. But a lot of the work that we've done on the phones and getting all of that ready for the desktop is also going to make Ubuntu TV a lot easier to development, because they all needed the same foundational stuff. What Ubuntu Personal is a migration to combine all of the end user GUI facing stuff into one set of images. So right now you've got the Ubuntu core images, which is used for Internet of Things devices in the cloud. And then Ubuntu Personal is going to be the combination of phone and desktop, and at some point in the future also TV. So they're all being merged into this one thing that we're kind of officially, unofficially, I don't even know anymore, calling Ubuntu Personal. The actual TV development is still on hold. Once we establish Ubuntu Phone and get that stable and finish the transition of the desktop over to Unity 8, then maybe we'll be able to come back and look at Ubuntu TV. It's also largely going to depend on finding a hardware company that wants to work with us on that. Core Apps Police again asks, how to get popular apps from other mobile markets is being discussed on the mailing list, and some people say make the platform ready first, then sell phones in the stores, and then the apps will come. On the other hand, some users say get funds by crowdsourcing in order to pay the ports. What's your opinion on this subject? Alan, you want that one?
This is a tricky one. So you need a stable platform. If users want to, developers want to create applications or port applications, either way, and your platform doesn't support the things they want to do. So let's take, for example, a game. Let's say someone wants to bring a game across from Android or iOS to Ubuntu. There are some big holes in our platform that mean that some specific games can't easily be ported across. Some can, and some have, but there are some holes that don't let that be quite as straightforward as going from Android to iOS, right? Our platform is not as mature as theirs. So like, take for example, if you're porting a game, there's no equivalent to Game Center on iOS, or the whatever it is called on Google Play. The Play services that allow that allow you to like synchronize your game state between your phone and your tablet, all that kind of stuff. So we just don't have that yet. And so if we went knocking on doors of game developers and said you should bring your game to our platform, and they look down their list of features that their game has and they see big holes that we don't have in our platform, the answer is going to be no, right? They just can't. They're not going to invest huge amounts of time to re-engineer the saving game state or whatever just for Ubuntu Phone, which has currently a very limited set of users and an even smaller set of people who are likely to buy that game, through which they could recoup the investment cost of porting the game in the first place, right? So that it makes no sense. So I completely agree with those who say we should get the platform right, then start knocking on the doors of people who want to port things across. There are other things like engines, like Unity 3D. Unity 3D has an exporter for iOS, for Android, for Ubuntu desktop, or Linux desktop, sorry, PlayStation Nintendo Wii and everything, but it doesn't have one for Ubuntu phone. So, it would be good if it did, or it would be good if we supported the HTML5 exporter that comes in Unity 3D version 5. That would be great. So, and maybe getting things like those toolkits, those engines, that middleware ported across would bring with it the developers who, could port. It's already hard enough getting game developers to port stuff to the Linux desktop. It's better now that we've got SteamOS, and it's better now that many of the toolkits like Unreal and Unity 3D have native exporters for Linux, but it's still quite a job to get people to do it to the desktop. To get them to do it to Ubuntu phone is like a couple of orders of magnitude even harder, right? So I believe that we should get the platform right. However, I do think that we have a great SDK that we can use for creating new and innovative applications that compare well to applications on other platforms. So while, the example that everyone gives, WhatsApp, Viber, whatever else, we don't have those. We have compelling alternatives. So long as we can have compelling alternatives, I think that helps.
Yeah, and every new OS faces the same problem where you need a lot of users to get these third-party apps ported, and you need these third-party apps ported to get a lot of users. And there's no silver bullet to make that all happen. So I think the way forward is, there's 100 smaller things that we can do, and each one of those things will open up the possibility for a small number of those apps to be ported. So, Poby mentioned WhatsApp. We're working now on a messaging framework that will let people write messaging service plugins to a single messaging app. That will make it possible for WhatsApp to write a plugin for this thing instead of writing their own full app for it. So that makes it a little bit easier for them. They don't need the Play Store or Google Play services or whatever for WhatsApp. So we can fix that one piece and we get one set of apps, and then we move on to fixing another piece that will make another set of apps possible. And every time we do that, we will gain a few more users who are just waiting on that piece of the puzzle to land before they can switch. So each step we take, each little piece that we fix is going to get us a few more apps, some more users, and we'll just grow steadily and incrementally that way, instead of there being, one magical thing that will make everything possible and bring in all of the users.
And the silver bullet, you might think, would be cold hard cash. Throw money at these developers and get them to port their apps across. And that hasn't necessarily worked well for Windows Phone. They throw money at ISVs in order to get their apps ported across, but that hasn't meant that Windows Phone is now up there with Android and iOS. It's slow, right. And we're in this for the long game. It's not, we're not expecting this to, like, January next year, suddenly everyone in your street owns an Ubuntu phone. We're realistic. We know that's not going to be the case.
Right. Not only do we not have the money to throw at all of these ISVs to get it ported, but if that money's the only motivation they had for the port, then as soon as the money dries up, so does their support for it. And I think that's why a lot of Windows apps have been pulled from the store after being written, was because once they weren't being paid for it anymore, they weren't going to support it or update it anymore. So I think the slow incremental approach and getting actual interest and buy-in to the platform itself, and not just on a paycheck, is the right way for us to go with this. And on a lighter note, Chloe Wolfie Girl is asking us if we're excited for Christmas.
Excited in the way that you get some time off from work. Personally speaking, I'll spend some time with the family. They've broken up from school. You may have heard earlier on clattering noises in the background of my kids playing around at home. So, get to play with them a little bit. Probably make some Lego toys, which is fun at Christmas time. Eat some food, see my family. And then when I get sick of the sight of my family, come back to my laptop and start hacking on something, probably. So, yeah. No meetings.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes. Yeah, pretty much the same story here. food and family. That's what I'm looking forward to the most. And Chloe Wolfie Girl asks the obligatory question: HUD on Ubuntu phone. So John Lee on the design team is going to be at the Ubucon summit in January, and my plan is to buy him drinks until he's drunk enough to agree to do it, and then make him do it. We'll see how that works out.
Excellent. I approve of this this method. Get designers drunk to get them to design features. Not sure it scales, but you know.
No, it's again throwing money at a problem.
Yes. Throw beer at a problem.
Yes.
Okay, what's next?
Sponge is asking us to tell him why Ubuntu Summit Ubucon is so special, and where do I get more information? Should I check Reddit? The best place to get information is ubucon.org. We've just put up a new site that has a lot of details on the Ubucon Summit, as well as some of the other Ubucons that are going on. Ubucon Summit is important because it's, instead of being just a regional conference, we're trying to grow it to a global conference to get back some of what we had at the in-person UDSs that we had. So it's not going to be a UDS. There's not going to be a lot of development planning going on there, but it is going to be a time where you can meet up with people from the Ubuntu community and from Canonical from all over the world, instead of just the ones that are, you know, local to where that Ubucon is happening. So that's going to be the main thing. We're going to have, like I said earlier, we're going to have Mark Shuttleworth there giving a keynote and being on a panel. We're going to have other leaders from the Ubuntu community who are going to be there for you to meet and talk to and network with. Sponge has asked a follow-up question, and that is, is Ubucon going to be in English or Spanish on YouTube? The Ubucon Summit is going to be all in English. Some of the other Ubucons are in other languages. Ubucon LA is typically in Spanish. I think they only had 1 or 2 English sessions this past year. And then Ubucon DE in Germany is, I think, mostly in German. But this one, the Ubucon Summit in California, is going to be in English. All right, Mini Ducks is asking, when will there be an Ubuntu phone in China?
So right now there's a China mobile conference thing, or a Chinese mobile conference, that I've seen some pictures online over the last couple of days. I don't know about specific devices in China, but I know there is active work going on over there at the moment.
Right. So Meizu is our Chinese partner, and they've released the MX4 in Europe, running Ubuntu. But last I heard, they were still going through government certification, the equivalent of the FCC over there, to be able to sell it actually within China. So I don't know what the status of that is, but hopefully sometime soon we'll have a phone on sale there. I don't know if you can buy the BQ Aquarius in China. I know you can buy it all over Europe and in India and in Russia now.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And our standard answer that we always give whenever anyone asks when is this device or that device coming is you have to ask the manufacturer of the device, because that's their responsibility, and we do the software, they do the hardware, they choose when to sell it.
Yeah, and if the holdup is going through certification, then they may not even be able to answer you. It may just be that they're waiting around for somebody else to do something.
Sure.
All right, Truly Lovely says, having a good-looking, fully featured Evernote client for Linux is a truly splendid thing. However, the amount of love the Notes app has been getting of late when compared to the music and browser apps seems to be relatively small. Are there upcoming stability and UI changes due?
So you can expect a bit of a refresh in the Notes app in the coming year to make it work better on a desktop, and to use the newer header, newer toolkit, and so on. We don't have any massive features lined up for the Notes app if people have feature requests, then probably the easiest thing to do is file a bug and detail what you would like in that bug for any, and that applies to any of the core apps really. And we can discuss it there. It's probably the easiest thing to do.
All right. Looks like all of Truly Lovely's are for you, Alan. The next one is, will the weather and clock apps be rotatable?
So at the moment, the apps that are currently getting the most design input are Calendar, Music, and Deco, and we'll move on to the others shortly. At the moment, weather and clock open in portrait mode on the desktop, and we have an outstanding task to design a desktop user interface for the weather app and the clock app. So if you do start it in portrait mode and then start dragging the window wider, what does it do with that extra space? Do you just get a big fat clock on the screen, or do you have multiple time zone clocks, or what? And we have an outstanding task for that. So yes, that will change soon, once we have the designs done for it, which will probably be after Deco, Calendar, and Music.
All right. And the third one is, Deco, although lovely, seems to have problems with iCloud accounts. So not really a question, but I guess more of a bug report.
Yeah, it's so Dan Chapman, who's primary developer on Deco, has learnt in a kind of trial by fire how IMAP implementations differ from one provider to another. So if everyone used the same email provider, his job would be significantly easier, right? So all of you have to now move to one email provider, and then we'll provide that email client. But that's not realistic. So everyone has a different email provider, and they all have different IMAP servers, and they all behave slightly differently, and so he has to cater for that and has to have quirks in the application for different providers. And I know he's tackling the big ones first, like to make sure that it works on Outlook, Hotmail, Yahoo, Gmail, plain good old vanilla IMAP servers that you might have at your ISP, or that you might run yourself. And iCloud is one of those as well. I think there was a problem early on because Dan didn't have an iOS device, and I think there was some requirement that you had to sign up with an iOS device for an iCloud account or a .me account or something. So for a long while, he wasn't able to test iCloud accounts. I believe he has an account now, so we can certainly make that better. But yeah, work is ongoing. If you have specific bugs, you know what to do. Launchpad.net/deco is where the bugs go.
All right. Sponge asks, does working at Canonical cover health insurance, or is that an opt-out in your employment scheme? So this may vary depending on the country. I know there's in the US, we have employer-provided health insurance that we opt into, just like any other company in the US would do. I don't know what it's like over in the UK, though.
NHS, baby. Yeah, it varies.
You and your lovely socialist medicine.
Yes, brother.
All right. Chloe's asking, any update on Mycroft on the phone? So I know they just updated, they posted an update on their Kickstarter page, but that was about them joining the IoT partnership with Ubuntu.
And also pictures of the hardware. There was nice
exploded
showing
picture.
The exploded design of the Mycroft. I'm quite looking forward to that because I initially only backed at the software level, and then at the very last minute I changed my mind and decided to increase it so I get one of the little Mycroft devices. So I'm looking forward to that.
Nice. The last update I heard on the phone was Jason DeOrleans, who's developing it. And he was just talking to some Unity developers about it, I think on Google+. So not really an announcement, just, regular back and forth communication. I do know that Ryan Sipes, the CTO of Mycroft, is going to be at Ubucon Summit in Pasadena, and yet another reason to go there. So you can ask him that there. I'll try and corner him and ask him that. He's also maybe going to be bringing an actual Mycroft unit to display at the Ubuntu booth at scale. So that'll be neat to see. Sponge is asking where the Ubucon Trello page is. Got a link to that. I don't know what the permission settings on that are, but if you can't see it, let me know. There's nothing really exciting there. It's just us planning and scheduling work items to get it all up and going.
I've just opened that link in a incognito window, and it works here. So yeah, I can see it all. I don't know, obviously you can't change anything, but you can certainly see it from...
Yeah, you can see all of our boring planning tasks on there.
And get involved!
All right. Yes, get involved is always a good thing. Corpse Police asks, what lessons has Canonical learned from Firefox OS? It appears they're quitting the mobile platform. So I think, and I'm not going to speak officially on this, but one of the things that I think we not necessarily learned from them, but kind of knew all along, was that we need to grow slowly and incrementally. We need to, target the people who can use the software that we have now, instead of trying to go massively global and go after average consumers right away. Because I think that bit Firefox OS pretty hard when a lot of people got their devices and it wasn't what they expected it to be, and they felt disappointed by that.
Right, and Firefox OS is maybe an example of where the argument that people give that when you have a ton of devices out there, the app developers will come. That's not necessarily proven through what happened with Firefox OS. If you take that one example of Firefox OS devices, there were multiple devices in numerous countries, lots of launches, lots of different OEMs, device manufacturers, and so on, and their experiment, it could be argued failed. And so, they've pulled back on mobile devices and will do other things instead. I personally, I think it's quite sad, because there was a lot of promise in Firefox OS, and I like the idea of local HTML5 apps on the device. And I think it's a shame that they were beset by some problems early on, like... they realized early on that well, a bit late really, they realized that manufacturers would kind of disown devices once the first update went out, and I think that's something they should have seen. It's easy in retrospect to say that, but we saw that, we knew that would happen, which is why we do the software updates ourselves, whereas Firefox had a different model where they expected companies like ZTE to do updates for the devices. So there certainly are lessons that anyone could learn from that, and I think it's a big shame. But I hope the people who worked on that have got plenty of other things they can be doing for gainfully.
Yeah, I think losing competition, it might seem like it's good for us, but really the more competition in this market space, the better it is for all of us who are trying to compete with Android and iOS. So it's kind of a shame that happened.
Yeah, there's some validation in the fact that multiple vendors of the smaller devices like the smaller teams like us were all doing similar things. There's some validation in there. Some would argue there's clearly, if a couple of them fail. I've seen there was a blog post recently that suggested that the fact that Yola are going through financial difficulties and Firefox have pulled out, that means, we're clearly going to give up as well. And I don't know where that logic comes from. It's kind of bizarre, but that's not the case.
Yeah, no. And people have to remember, we've already got an established desktop market, and most of the work that's going into the phone is also going to be going into that. So it's not like, it's just the phone and it's make or break on just the phone. There's a much broader range of devices and markets that we're targeting with this development.
Okay, we've got loads of questions lined up.
Yes.
Many Ducks asks which convergent phones are showcased in China, and there's a link to a tweet. I have no idea. I would assume that given that we only have the convergent stuff working on the Nexus 4 and the Nexus 7 right now, I would imagine it's the Nexus 4 and Nexus 7. There may be other devices out there that I don't know about, but that's all I know about.
Yeah, I'm sure that they've got some of the MX4s on display there, but I don't know what they're doing with those. And unfortunately, you can't really see in the picture what the phones are.
Yeah. Okay, next question is for you. In your November 4th blog post, you talk about women in tech. Would you like to talk about the generality of that post?
I really wouldn't know. I mean, the post pretty much, the title basically says everything that I wanted to say. If you want to look into the background of that, I was just annoyed by what some people were posting on their blogs and was making the rounds. So that was just kind of a reaction to that. Most people probably aren't going to care. If you do, read the blog post.
Question from Dragonbite says, will parts of Ubucon be streamed online, and from where? I guess you mean like video, audio, that kind of thing.
Right. I don't know. It's going to depend on what the scale setup has available for us. I think the keynotes might be on video. I don't know if they're going to be streamed or if they're just going to be available to watch later. I don't think any of the smaller sessions are going to be recorded or streamed, though.
Okay. Ziegelman asks, any news on the phone with converged hardware? Do we think it'll be there by 1604? Is the software on track to be ready? Well, I think is the software ready?
No, we don't really have any news. I think is the short answer to that.
Yeah, we don't have a specific date or device to announce today. But equally, I would be careful about saying if something is ready, because we're constantly improving stuff. Like 18 months ago, you could have said parts of it were ready, and now things have improved immeasurably since then. So
yeah, I mean, we've had 8 stable updates since the first phone came out earlier this year.
Yeah, and another one this week, and another one in like 4 weeks' time. So it's under constant change at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dragonbite asks, is Ubuphone trying to woo Firefox OS developers, and how much of Firefox OS code can be utilized with the Ubuntu phone? I don't think we're actively going out there and saying to Firefox OS developers, you should come over here. If they're mobile app developers and the platform they were developing for has gone away, I'm sure they'll find somewhere else to go. They would be most welcome here. But we're not actively looking for them. I don't know if any of the
and we've been trying to woo those app developers all along. We haven't, we're not just going to start wooing HTML5 developers now. We've been doing that since the beginning and supporting HTML5 as a native app, since the first SDK release.
And I don't know if, some of the Firefox OS code might be reusable. I've certainly had a look at some of the code myself, and there are some things that are very Firefox OS specific that depend on certain functions of Firefox OS itself. So, there may be parts that could be reused, or parts that could be modified or ported, but I don't know how much worth.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of Firefox OS itself that's going to be portable to Ubuntu.
Right.
All right, Dragonbite asks, can Ubuntu Mobile run on the Firefox phones?
Maybe
some of the higher end ones.
Yeah, probably not it's certainly not the little dinky, the first ones, the ZTE Open and the. I have a Firefox Flame here, which is the developer phone that they released a little while ago, and I think this is even a bit too low spec for Ubuntu. So probably not. It might be an interesting technical challenge for someone to do that. Good luck.
All right, Sponge asks, does Canonical / Ubuntu have a problem with participation?
That's a broad
I think we've
question.
got this. Yeah, we've got the same problem that every open source project has, in that we always want more participation than we have.
Yeah, that's fair. Chloe Wolfie Girl asks, have you got your Christmas shopping done?
Mostly.
I personally am not a big shopper at Christmas time. There's one person in my life that I really need to buy something for. And two little people who magically.
I was going to say, how many kids do you have again?
Well, I'm responsible for making sure my wife gets something. She is mostly responsible for making sure that Father Christmas brings something for the little ones. You see. So
all right, Sponge asks, who does secret. Sponge is asking, who does Secret Santa here? I don't. I will let everybody on IRC to talk to Sponge about that, though.
We did do Secret Santa in the London office one year, and I got a mug that has chalk, so you can write on the outside. You can scribble on the outside of your mug, so you can tell people what mood you're in that day just by drawing a face or writing on the inside of the mug.
That's pretty cool. Sponge also asks, why are low-tone bagpipes playing on my audio? And I have no idea why that is. You know what? It might be the AC. Hang on a second. Sponge, let me know if that's better. Sometimes I get interference from my... is it?
Yeah, it was kind of a low drone.
Yeah. Whenever I'm like recording for a podcast or something, I have to unplug it. Yeah, that gives me 3 hours on a Hangout.
Okay, what's next?
Mini Ducks asks, what are the most interesting new apps or games on Ubuntu phone?
Ooh.
I just downloaded a new game too that was really addictive. Let me remember what that was.
That's a good question, actually. I install basically everything on my device. So,
you know what's exciting is Document Viewer with LibreOffice support.
That's not a game.
No, well, they said apps or games.
Oh, okay, apps or games. Oh, okay. Well, in that case, Night Clock. I quite like Night Clock because I often like to have a clock on a device that's just sat next to the bed or next to my desk or something, and it's a nice little app. It looks like an LED display, so I quite like that. And there's been recent updates to Podbird as well. And also there's a port of Baldur's Gate, the old game from a long time ago, which was ported across to Ubuntu. And I had to dig out my copy of Baldur's Gate and copy it onto my phone in order to be able to play it, which was cool. So, yeah.
So the game I just downloaded, it's called, get the name of it, Swipe Out. Swipe Out. And it's the classic, you swipe the blocks out of the way, and they've got a whole bunch of levels on there.
Yes.
So that's my new addiction, because I've already played every level of Monster Wars and Machines versus Machines.
There's Petals, which is ported from, I think it was a Sailfish OS app, which is written in QML and was easily ported by Sturmflut. And I have no idea how to play it. It looks nice, but I don't understand it.
So when we were sprinting in London, some of the desktop team were playing the game that was basically the same thing. And yeah, it's hard to understand the rules when you first get started. All right, moving on. Mini Ducks asks, how is convergence different from continuum and which one is better? So I
I know
really don't
nothing
know
about
that
continuum.
much about continuum. Yeah. So can't answer that. Chloe asks, do you want and think Ubuntu phone will scale as well or better than Android for lower priced devices in the near future? I think the fact that we still target the Nexus 4 as our development target really gives us an advantage there. I don't know how Android currently runs on that, but I know Android on my 2012 Nexus 7 is almost unusable now with recent updates. So I think as long as we keep targeting something like the Nexus 4, then we're always going to work well on devices that are becoming the low-end devices now.
Yeah, I agree. Although I feel the BQE 4.5 feels slower than the Nexus 4 to me. So I don't know what the relative specs of them are. I don't know if it's the GPU or the CPU or what, but the E4.5 feels lower end, even though it's probably newer than the Nexus 4. Feels lower end, and I think it's good, as Mike says, that we target both of these devices. So, for example, Mike mentioned the Doc Viewer app, which now has LibreOffice support, and so there's a cut down copy of LibreOffice on this phone, and I am staggered that it's able to spin up LibreOffice and render a Word document or a ODT file or a spreadsheet or a presentation on this tiny little computing device. That's testament to how far mobile devices have come along and the development work that the LibreOffice developers have done, really. But it's pretty cool. I don't think we can go much lower than this. I think it would start to degrade the experience, and we'd have to do an awful lot of work optimizing things to get it on much lower hardware. And generally
Yeah.
in the future, devices become more powerful, and the ones that are the most powerful ones today will become the least powerful ones tomorrow, and we'll still be able to run this.
All right, Chloe asks, when can Americans buy an Ubuntu phone? Well, you can buy a BQ phone right now. It's just not going to work on high-speed data over here in the US. We are still waiting on a US manufacturer or a partner who can ship phones that they can support in the US. We don't have any news on that. For the time being, your best bet is to just pick up a Nexus 4 and flash Ubuntu on it.
What's next?
Super Engineer is asking which one of us is going to send him an Ubuntu phone Christmas present and when will it arrive?
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chloe asks.
I've added Ubuntu phones onto my Christmas list as well, because while I have, where's it gone? Oh, there we go. While I have the E4.5, I would quite like an E5 as well. So I'll hope Santa drops a BQ E5 down my chimney this Christmas.
Yeah, I know you're suffering with only like 6 different phones right now, and that can be hard.
Well, they're not mine. This is the only one that is actually mine. I paid for this, so I would like my own phone.
All right. Chloe has an interesting question. What does Ubuntu on the phone look like and do in a year's time? So at the end of 2016, what do you think it's going to be like?
So it's funny. I have a collection of screenshots that I've been taking of the phone. Whenever I take a screenshot for a bug report or in order to share a feature or something that's new on Twitter or Google Plus or whatever, I keep the screenshot, and I have this giant library of hundreds and hundreds of screenshots taken over the last 2 years, since the beginning of when I first started saving them at the beginning of 2013. And looking at some of the apps, I sometimes go back and look at the screenshots from the beginning of 2013 and compare them to what the apps look like now. And it's funny because at the time we looked at some of those apps and thought, yeah, that looks good. That's really awesome. Partly because, we created it. But now, look back at it.
And we
with all
thought
due respect
gradients
to the
were awesome.
and the designers, we look back at them and think, wow, that looks terrible. that looks really awful. And so I would say it's just going to look better in a
But
year's time.
to be fair, every platform goes through that. If you go back and you look at, really old iOS or Android screenshots, you're going to think they look terrible too.
Some would argue at this point that iOS looks exactly the same as it did on a 3G. But yeah, that's true. That's true. So yeah, the easy answer is it will look better. There you go.
So I'll make a couple predictions. I'm going to predict that the dash is going to look drastically different. It may not work drastically different, but I think we're going to probably see some major UI changes to that. That's one area that's kind of lagged behind. We did some major changes on it early on, like a year and a half or so ago, and I think it's due for some big changes again. My second prediction is that there are going to be a lot more apps. I think by this time next year, we will have at least 5,000 apps in the store, probably quite a bit more than that. So that's my prediction. We'll see how close I am to that in a year's time.
Yeah, I would say going along with that, this time next year. So at the moment we've got like 2,500, 2,000 something apps in the store. I would say by the end of next year, we will significantly increase the proportion of native QML, C++, and HTML5 apps over and above plain web apps. So there will be more, I agree with you, and there will be more native apps.
Now, to be fair, we're making these predictions knowing that we're going to have a hand in making them come true. So they're not just
motivated to make them come true now,
yes.
because I come on this next year and say, no, I was wrong.
Yes, I don't remember who said it, but somebody said the best way to predict the future is to invent it. So so now it's on us to make these things come true over the next 12 months.
Cool. I think we're running out of time now. Have you got any more questions?
Let's see. Johan asks, are there plans to have more features with the circle lock screen in Ubuntu Touch, or how will it evolve in the future? I don't think there's going to be too much to that, because it is, ultimately just a lock screen. So I don't think we're going to throw too many new features in that. Maybe you'll have some more stuff in the indicators that you can use from the lock screen, but not in the lock screen itself.
I'd like to see a plug-in based lock screen that allows you to have interesting and different ways to lock and unlock your device that we can plug into and add. So for example, I saw a really nice BlackBerry lock screen where you have a picture in the background that you choose, and over the top of that is just a grid of numbers, like it looks like random numbers. And to unlock the phone, you swipe to move this massive grid of numbers until one of the numbers is over the top of a particular point in the picture. But you choose which number and you choose which picture. So anyone looking over your shoulder doesn't know which number you're moving or where you're moving it to. It just looks like you're moving a number grid around. So that kind of like interesting, different way to unlock your phone is what I would like to see on the lock screen.
So if it takes 10 minutes for Alan to reply to a message to you, it's only because he's trying to unlock his phone.
It's just because I'm trying to move a number 3 over a cat's nose. Yes.
I'm going to grab one more from Chloe. She says, earlier you talked about getting WhatsApp via a plugin for another app. How's that app going to get alternative messages? When you have that, how are you going to advertise it to developers? And who do you plan to go to? So roughly the way this will work is kind of the way Empathy works on Ubuntu desktop right now, where you've got this one app and an API and plugins that will feed into that API, contacts and messaging information and whatnot. The problem with just using that API right now is that it doesn't allow for confinement. So we can't have people, throw their own plugins in the store and know that you can install them and run them on your phone safely. So the new API that we're developing for this is going to take that into account and hopefully provide a nice simple API just for messaging that people can plug into. And then we'll promote that on the developer portal with documentation and instructions. We will probably develop a fair number of them ourselves based on open protocols like XMPP. And then it'll just be up to WhatsApp and others to provide their own plugins for that. And I think the end result will be something similar to what I think iOS has in their messaging app, where there's multiple services that all integrate into the same place. That will hopefully be fleshed out a little bit more in the coming year, and we'll be able to talk about that a little bit more. All right, and finally, Sponge is asking what the schedule is for Ubuntu on Air over Christmas and New Year's. The schedule for Alan and I is to be on holiday until the first full week of January, so we won't be here. I think David Panella was planning on being here Tuesday. I don't know, Tuesday of next week. I don't know if anybody else is. So you may get one next week. You are almost definitely not going to get one the week after. But we should be back, like I said, the first week of January. So I think our first on air would be January 5th.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Alan. And we are out of time now. Thank you, everyone on IRC, for your questions. Hope you all have a happy holidays and a fun and safe new year. And we will see you all again in January. Take care.
Ta-da. Bye-bye.